On our panel, Kellyanne Conway, former counselor to President Trump, host of Here's the Deal on Fox Nation. Liz Peek, syndicated columnist, Fox News contributor. Rich Lowry, editor-in-chief at National Review. It's a very interesting, it is a new group, by and large. They're not the only ones, I'm not saying. He hasn't rejected the old crowd, but he's got a new group. And it's a diverse group, and it's a diverse Republican Party. And they're all very smart. And I think that speaks volumes about Trump's not afraid to have smart people with him. He wants the best and brightest as he sees it. People talk about his ego. I don't know. He's willing to bring all these people in. Elon Musk, you know, Vivek Ryan. Anyway, I want you to speak to that, if you would, Kellyanne, because it just strikes me that Kamala broke it. OK, I get that, but he's going to fix it. And this new group is going to make sure that he's going to fix it. And that's what voters want.
It's a great contrast. We both work for Donald Trump in the White House. You know, he doesn't try to substitute for his team. He tries to supplement it. And he made that clear when he announced Corey Lewandowski coming back this summer. He actually said in his quote, "Many great men and women from our previous two campaigns want to help us. In this one, quote, we're going to take as many as we can." That's Donald Trump in full. Also, I think too much has been made of all the celebrities around Kamala Harris. These folks aren't necessarily celebrities. Some of them clearly are. But when young men particularly think of Elon Musk, they think of the future. They think of a guy who's in space. And when the rocket doesn't launch, it melts down on the pad, he says, let's try it again. And who knows what we'll find in space? Cures for disease, you know, the future. They see the future. They also know that he rescued Twitter. 4 years ago, as we sit here, New York Post couldn't be on Twitter. They have been taken off of Twitter by Jack Dorsey because they dare tell the truth about Hunter's laptop. So lots of people see Elon Musk as a vanguard for freedom. He's got a lot of former Democrats like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard who ran against him for president. I think what the untold story, though, is what they all represent, beginning with Trump, which is forget about random Republican X and random Republican Y who worked for John McCain and Mitt Romney and the Bushes, who's endorsed Kamala Harris. Whoop-de-doo. You're not telling the story, mainstream media, about the tens of millions should-be, would-be Democratic rank-and-file voters who are going towards Trump. You can have the 100, 200, 500 Republicans who have endorsed Kamala. I'll take the tens of millions of union households, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, young people, Jewish American voters, all these core Democratic constituencies that are migrating slowly but surely to Donald Trump. And they're doing that because his closing message is optimistic. It's to heal and unify the nation. There's nothing healing about the ellipse tonight in January 6th redux. Last point, Kamala Harris, what happened to her is what happens to everybody. Hillary Clinton, all the people who ran against Trump in the primaries this time and 8 years ago. They get addled with Trump derangement syndrome. All they can do is see Trump. There's no cure. There's no therapeutic. It's a disease that wrecks your nervous system, and she's got it. She can't be positive and optimistic and joyful.
But Rich Lowry, you had a couple of fries and a milkshake about 2 years ago. Cost you nearly $20. That was kind of like the leading indicator where this whole story. Little did you know that Trump was going to serve it up to you. But I wanted Hulk Hogan on this list because he is cool, first of all. Okay, he's just like me. But he is the one who said no stinking Nazis. And I just want to clear that up. Very good column in the New York Post today. You had Orthodox Jews out there. You had all kinds of people. By the by, Muslims, American Muslims are endorsing him in Dearborn and Hamtramck, Michigan, which is pretty amazing, hasn't gotten near enough coverage. And I just wanted to clear that up. That is, look, Hulk Hogan is part of the Trump, the Trump team. He's not going to be the budget director or something like that. But there he is, symbolically. What does it tell you?
Yeah, so the media is unremittingly negative about Trump's campaign. So you kind of wonder, why is the race tilting his way? And what they're missing or not telling us, he is in the strongest position he's ever been in the general election. He's never done better in major media polls than he has done now. He's never been more popular than he is now. And he's never had, going to Kellyanne's point, a broader and more diverse coalition than he has now. And the political importance of an RFK or an Elon, they can talk to that disaffected male sitting on his couch playing video games the way others can't. And I thought one of the most enjoyable parts of Trump's presentation, and by the way, his MSG speech was upbeat and on message. It got obscured in the coverage, but absolutely. But when he was talking about those chopsticks, catching that rocket when it came down and talking to someone on the phone and putting his phone down and forgetting who he was talking to because he was in such awe.
Did you see the rocket come? Did you see? I mean,
I've watched
we all
about
did.
30 different videos.
It's incredible.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it came
and just the sheer joy of
kind of
people
got in,
watching
then it docked itself,
human achievement.
and
Yeah,
nobody can figure that out. And Liz, I appeal to you. You're really the only numbers person on this panel who understands it. I tried to make it as simple as possible from the two senators. But let's not forget, kitchen table issues are Trump's calling card, and they didn't occur during his presidency. They have occurred. Wages are rising more slowly than prices. Housing costs are enormous. Car costs are enormous. Just basic type stuff. And I don't want to let that go by. It was a good op-ed piece by two smart senators. But it's part of Trump's coalition and part of his closing argument.
Yeah, and it's been wonderful to watch the liberal media absolutely try and browbeat Americans into thinking they're doing very well. You know, so, I mean, the number of polls that have come out where people say 75% of the country still thinks the economy is either poor or not good. So, you know, what is the response? Instead of actually trying to fix that or talking about what might fix it, everyone scurries around and says, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. Actually, there are a lot of jobs and so forth. But what's happening now, Larry, people are worried about jobs. The JOLTS number today came in. It wasn't particularly impressive. We're seeing unemployment go up slowly, to be sure, but nonetheless, it's getting worse. So I think people are concerned about this. But the magic of all this, Donald Trump did it before, and he can do it again. This isn't... Kamala Harris is going to talk tonight about turning the page and what she's going to do differently from Donald Trump. I read you the quote where she actually says what difference between he and I, which is disqualifying in my view, but nonetheless. But what are those things? What are those things she's going to do? She has yet to really present a case to the American public that she can actually move the needle and make their lives better.
What is her... So we have Trump's closing arguments down, all right? In some order, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Kamala broke it. I'm going to fix it. Peace through strength. There's some others tonight. She is tonight going to speak at the mall in Washington about January 6, 2021. That plus Hitlerizing Trump, which, you know, and fascist Trump, and that's what Democrats are. That's it? Are those seriously her closing arguments? Because they are such bad losers, she's going to lose badly.
She's going to lose badly. She's going to lose independence for that reason, Larry. They don't like the negativity of politics to begin with. They have declared their independence from both parties and refuse to pledge allegiance because they have this distrust of institutions and politicians for being so negative and never truly telling you who they are, what they would do to make your life better. She's failed to do that. Mike Donnellan, a very close longtime advisor to Joe Biden, came out in March, and he said Joe Biden was going to prosecute the case about January 6th. And people, Democrats descended upon him and said, what a losing message. So we're going to do it now, 8 months later with Kamala Harris. It makes no sense.
Dumb.
People, by the way, if you care about January 6th, and plenty do, if you care about abortion, if you care about climate, you're not an undecided voter. You're in the polls already. You probably have already cast your vote. I don't know who she's appealing to, who's that last mile of wire in these suburban counties around Detroit, Philadelphia,
If she loses, the key strategic choice will be they didn't get any separation from Joe Biden.
Correct.
As soon as she's selected, she should have said, these are the three things I would have done differently. But she didn't. And my guess why she didn't is because she had to shift on everything she said in 19 and 20, and then they probably felt it was too much to also shift on everything that happened in the last 3 years.
Because she's so inauthentic, which people saw as a character flaw. But look, she had opportunities on The View and other shows to distinguish herself, to separate herself, and she wouldn't do it.
They helped
or
hurt
she
her.
couldn't do it, or something.
They hurt
I don't
her.
know.
I think
Sunny
she's-
Hostin, thank you for destroying Kamala Harris's campaign.
She's so afraid of who she really is, Larry. She really is a progressive left-wing Democrat. It was just 5 years ago that she went on the campaign trail talking about issues that are very far left, like Medicare for all. You don't just wake up one day and say, oh, you know, I was really wrong about everything. I mean, that's not a very strong platform. That's kind of where she is.
Just to come back to this, January 6th. Look, we have litigated this. We have impeached this. We have weaponized this, lawfared this, taken all his money away, taken his business away, thrown him out of New York where he grew up, and has changed the entire skyline. And look where he is today, for heaven's sakes. They have thrown 5 books at him, and he is standing taller than she is. And I know, well, I'm going to say it 1,000 times, polls aren't votes. But when you look at the Real Clear Politics average, both nationally and by the swing states, she is 5, 6, and 7 points worse off this very day than was Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton 4 years ago and 8 years ago.
Hillary Clinton was 6.8% today. Joe Biden was 7.4%. Trump is like 0.1 of a percentage point. So it is his best polling, as Rich says.
It's incredible. It's absolutely great. I know polls aren't votes.
I think that everybody is touching upon this here, Larry, but let's put it on the table. Clearly, Trump's right when he says they're really going after you. I'm just standing in the way, because now they're just trying to castigate and denigrate we Americans. It didn't work with Hillary. I think Kamala has this more subtle way of saying we're irredeemable and deplorable. But negative, negative, negative has never uplifted a nation, made them feel patriotic. And I actually want to disagree a little bit. I think she made a mistake by going too far away from Biden. She ran him over, and then she ran too far away from their shared record. Here's why. She should have said, here are the great things we did together, but here are the things I'm going to do differently when my hand's on the wheel. But she's seen as ungracious. She's seen ungracious. She doesn't even take moments to say, I should have been the person in charge of the Butler, Pennsylvania investigation. I want that report on my desk. She doesn't even know how to take free moments. You know, she spent $1 billion in ads just to alienate voters. They've seen too much of her in ads and not enough of her in their communities.
Michael Corleone said, never hate your enemies because it affects your judgment. And this has been true. This is a line that the left and the press hasn't taken on board.
Look, it's my favorite movie, but Hulk Hogan said, no stinking Nazis.
He's
no
right. I was
stinking
there.
Nazis.
They weren't.
And I don't believe he'll be Treasury Secretary. I didn't rule out,
Maybe head of Secret
rule out
Service.
Deputy Secretary. All right, Rich Lowry, Liz Peek, and Kellyanne Conway. The guy can count. He knows his stuff. And folks, don't forget to tune in. Here's the Deal with Kellyanne, streaming now on Fox Nation. Coming up here on Kudlow,